There are roads you can see on a map, the kind satellites photograph, GPS charts, and Google guides you through turn by turn. They are measured, predictable, paved with certainty, framed by convenience. And then there are the other roads, the ones no screen will ever show you, the ones you can't search for because they aren't written down anywhere. They exist in whispers, in half-forgotten stories, in the muscle memory of old travelers who never kept journals, because to them, the journey was not something to record, but something to be carried in the bones. These are the hidden roads, and they are not just about geography. They are about what happens when you leave the path you thought you were on, when you wander into the unknown without asking it to justify itself. Today, I want to take you there, not to the places where tourists gather in flocks, cameras clicking in sync, not to the picture-perfect spots that look exactly like the online gallery you already scrolled through, but to the paths that appear only when you have no agenda, the ones that emerge when you stop chasing a destination and let the journey itself decide where you're going. The first step is always a leap. It began for me in a small railway station in a city I barely knew. A quiet place with faded benches, a clock that ticked too slowly, and the faint metallic smell of trains that had passed through decades before I was born. I had a ticket in my pocket bought out of habit, because that's what you do when you're somewhere unfamiliar. You plan, you secure the route, you make sure you know where you're going. But that morning, over coffee in a tiny street cafe, a local man leaned toward me with a conspiratorial smile. "There's a village," he said, "up in the hills. You won't find it on a map." He told me no buses went there, no signs pointed to it, no official record of its existence existed except in the memories of those who had walked there. "How do you find it?" I asked. He shrugged as if giving directions to a place in a dream. "Follow the river until the sound of the water changes." I didn't know what that meant. Was the water faster, slower, louder, quieter? But I was curious. And sometimes curiosity is enough to erase the plan you thought you needed. When the train arrived, its brakes sighing in the crisp morning air, I stayed on the platform. I stepped onto a narrow road instead, following the scent of wet earth and the faint, steady hush of a stream somewhere beyond the buildings. That's when I understood. The hidden roads don't begin with a left turn or a right turn. They begin the moment you step away from what is comfortable. They begin when you trade certainty for curiosity. The world changes when you walk without a map. The moment you stop following GPS directions, the world feels different, slower, richer, more alive. It's not that the world changes, it's that you do. You notice what you normally miss. A bakery tucked behind an unmarked wooden door, its warm bread smell curling through the street like a secret invitation. A farmer pausing mid-step to wave as he herds goats down a narrow lane, their bells chiming softly. A patch of moss-covered stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, their placement hinting at a path that predates any road. I followed one of those stone trails for hours. No cars, no engines, just my own footsteps, the wind in the tall grass, and the rhythmic pulse of my heartbeat in my ears. Somewhere along the way, I reached a small wooden bridge. It was crooked, its paint peeling in long strips, the wood soft from decades of rain. It wasn't on any map. Crossing it felt like walking into a different season, maybe even a different century. The air cooled, the light softened. Birdsong shifted into a slower, older rhythm, as if even time was adjusting its pace to match the place. The stories only locals know. On the far side of the bridge, at the edge of a wide valley, I found a tea shop. Not a shop in the way you might think, just a low wooden building with a single table outside and steam rising from clay cups. Inside, an old man sat near the window. His voice was as soft as the steam curling from his drink. He told me of a path that led to a forgotten monastery. "It's still used," he said, "when people need answers, or forgiveness, or just silence. No outsider comes there," he added, "unless the road chooses them." I smiled politely, assuming it was just a poetic way of saying, "You're lucky you're here." But the longer I walked, the more I began to feel that he was right. Every turn I took was unplanned. Every fork in the road felt like it appeared not by coincidence, but because of some quiet permission I didn't know I'd been given. The roads that change you. Here's the truth about hidden roads. They're never just about where they take you. They're about who you are by the time you get there. When you travel without a fixed plan, you give up control. You let go of the illusion that you can predict everything. You risk getting lost, and in doing so, you open the possibility of finding something far more valuable than what you set out for. At first, that surrender is terrifying, but then you realize most of your life has been spent clinging to control you never truly had. The monastery was real. It emerged from the trees as if it had been grown rather than built, its stone walls hugging the cliffside, its arched windows filled with shadows and light. Inside, the air smelled of incense and ancient stone. Faded paintings clung to the walls, their colors still whispering across centuries. There were no signs, no guided tours, only a handful of monks who nodded at me with the quiet recognition of people who understand that some arrivals cannot be explained, only accepted. The lesson of the hidden road. When I left that place, I carried something I couldn't name. It wasn't just a memory. It was a kind of quiet, the kind that doesn't fade when you go back to your ordinary life. And I realized something simple. Maps can only take you to places other people have already found. The most beautiful, life-changing experiences will never be printed, pinned, or posted. They are discovered by slowing down enough to notice them, by taking the detour, by talking to the stranger who still believes stories are worth telling. The roads are everywhere. You don't have to cross oceans to find a hidden road. They exist where you live. In the alley you've passed 100 times but never walked through. In the trail behind the park you've promised yourself you'd explore someday. In the conversation you never had because you thought you didn't have time. Every time you choose curiosity over convenience, you're stepping onto a hidden road. Every time you decide to see what lies beyond the familiar, you're traveling without a map. Why these roads matter. We live in a time when almost everything is documented before we arrive. You can see photographs of nearly any street, any landmark, any waterfall. You can watch videos of the exact walk you're about to take. But there's something magic about standing in a place and realizing no one you know has stood here. No one you know has told this story. The hidden roads keep the world mysterious. They remind us that not everything can be previewed, rated, or ranked. That wonder still exists not in the top results of a search engine, but in the quiet corners no one has bothered to write about yet. The journey never ends. I've lost count of the places I've found without looking for them. A cave lit by the slow glow of fireflies. A waterfall that sings long before it comes into view. A cliff overlooking an ocean so vast it feels like the first sight ever made by human eyes. These are not places you find. They are places that find you. And when they do, they change you. They make you more patient, more present, more willing to see where the next turn might lead, even if you don't know its name. The roads teach you how to see. If there's one thing the hidden roads give you, it's not just new places, it's new eyes. You begin to see patterns in the cracks of old stone walls. You notice how light bends differently in one valley than in another. You start to realize that every place has its own rhythm, and if you walk slowly enough, you can match it. And when you return to the mapped world, you still carry that way of seeing. Even familiar streets feel layered, as if they're keeping quiet secrets you might finally be ready to hear. So here's my advice. Stop searching for every answer before you begin. Let yourself take the wrong road. Let yourself walk without knowing what's ahead. Let yourself be led by the river until the sound of the water changes. Because the roads no map will ever show you. They don't just lead you to new places. They lead you to a new version of yourself.